Let me tell you a story. When I was younger, I was admittedly quite sheltered and didn't really know many things about the world yet. I was basically allergic to touching grass. So then comes out this anime called Oreimo. Oreimo is short for Ore no imoto ga konnani kawaii wake ga nai, which when translated to English means there's no way my sister could be this cute. What a start to this video, holy shit. The anime stars a pair of siblings and their brave quest in fighting against the societal norms of not fucking your family members. Sorry if I sound a little weird today, I'm a little sick right now. Physically sick and also sick of this bullshit. Kirino Kosaka is a popular high school girl who embodies the ideal student. She has perfect grades, makes her bag by modeling on the side and whatnot. However, she harbors a dark secret that is one day discovered by Kyosuke Kosaka, Kirino's extraordinarily average brother, who stumbles upon an erotic game that belongs to none other than his seemingly flawless younger sister. Now that her reputation was at stake, Kirino pretty much forces Kyosuke to never tell anyone about this world-shattering dark secret, while also introducing him to the world of eroge, like erotic games and anime. Over time, the unfriendly siblings bond as they meet a cast of fun and quirky characters. And one by one, we watch as Kyosuke become closer with these girls as they all catch the feelings for Riz Master McGee over here. However, Kyosuke is unable to truly love any of them back as he already had someone in mind. I can't. I'm gonna quote the rest of this story from the Oreimo wiki because I can't. I literally hate the words I'm saying right now. Despite the many girls that constantly confess to him throughout the series. However, Kyosuke ultimately reveals that he actually harbors romantic feelings for his younger sister and added that he has been harboring it for years, to the point where he even proposes to her, which Kirino tearfully accepts, and they decide to become a couple until graduation day. After their graduation, they had a pseudo marriage in a church arranged by Kyosuke and ended their relationship as a couple and returned to being normal siblings. The end. I'm already sick, but I think recording this video is making me sicker. So I watched the entirety of this show, right? And middle school me, after finishing the show, is like, oh, this guy and this girl really love each other. Oh, they had a fake wedding and fulfilled their one true wish. Happy ending. What a wholesome show. And for some reason, it never really clicked in my mind until one day I was just kind of like, wait, those two are blood-related siblings. Like, they loved each other romantically, but they were also, like, actually siblings. Like, what the fuck? Again, I was a very sheltered young boy, and I did not understand the concept of incest, okay? I know it doesn't make my case sound any better, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, the crazy thing is, Oreimo was actually kind of popular at the time it came out, and I'm not really sure what the general consensus is on this show, but doing a quick scan over the My Anime List page shows that a lot more people actually like this anime than I would have thought. But then again, I remember kind of liking this anime back when I first watched this show, so I got to thinking, what about this anime makes it so that the taboo topic of incest is so casually accepted amongst the fans as based? Like, why did I even enjoy this anime in the first place? It's hard to say at first, I feel like, because objectively speaking, the characters in the show are not only like walking and talking red flags, but a lot of them are also just like unbearable and annoying as shit, especially the two main protagonists. First off, they're literally siblings, so why the fuck are you in love? But also, even if we remove the fact that they're in love with each other, Kirino is an unbelievably annoying, spoiled little shit who makes me believe that the creation of the tsundere was a fucking mistake. Meanwhile, Kyosuke is a doormat, but like somehow he's the doormat that all of the other doormats step all over. He lets his sister pretty much destroy all shred of dignity within him, but he also then goes out of his way to reject his catgirl turned ex-girlfriend, childhood bestie turned secret crush, sister's BFF who's just as popular as she is, all in the name of fake marrying his own sister Alabama style. Like, what the actual fuck is this? These two literally had a fake wedding, and they kissed! And we're sitting there watching this and going, yes, my blood-related king and queen, my lovely anime Lannisters, you tell society to go shove it. Jesus Christ, this is too much. The thing with Oreimo is that the show frames the whole incest story in a way where I think it's portrayed pretty similarly to like other romantic comedy anime. Oh, the protagonists are in this silly situation where they're in love with each other, but there are circumstances preventing this from fully blooming. An example, Kaguya-sama is about two lovers who both waste way too much fucking time being too prideful to actually confess first. Great show, by the way, but that's just, you know, kind of how it is. Oreimo was kind of like that, but instead of the two lovers having too much pride, they're just blood-related siblings. Look, when you're young and clueless about the world, it's easy to just accept these things without questioning it in the moment. And also, even to this day, despite everything, this show's opening slaps. Like, I swear, sometimes it feels like these cursed-ass animes make sure to have like the most banger opening to distract from the absolute depravity that lies within them. Also, the two siblings are designed pretty differently. They have completely different colored hair and different colored eyes, almost like they were purposefully designed in a way where you wouldn't really think that the two were actually blood related, which would ideally make it easier for a clueless young dumbass to look at the two characters falling in love and go, oh, that's cute. Like, if they had the same exact hair color and same exact eye color, I don't think the story would have played out the same. And look, I get it, okay? You might be thinking, Leo, you're a fucking dumbass. How can you not notice how weird and gross the show is when the title is literally, hey, yo, no way my sister's kind of bad though? And you would be right, okay? But also, I bring this story up mostly because I wanted to talk about the overarching point of this video, which is that this whole siblings loving each other as more than just family thing is such a common trope in anime that sometimes I feel weird for even questioning it in the first place. Hello everybody, my name is Leo Hashi, and today I wanted to discuss a question that I've had for a while now. What the fuck is wrong with siblings in anime? Now mind you, okay, most siblings in anime are pretty normal. Nezuko and Tanjiro from Demon Slayer have such a wholesome sibling bond, with the two being the only survivors of their family. Edward and Alphonse Elric are brothers through and through. The entire story of Full Metal Alchemist is about these two brothers. But I've also noticed that there are a little too many siblings in anime that go beyond the realm of normal family bonds and right into the state lines of Alabama. I mean, there's even terminology for this phenomenon, right? Known as a brocon or a siscon. These anime characters are in a constant state of strong attachment and obsession to their brother or sister. According to the Daretypes wiki, this is often in the form of a romantic attraction, but it is not inherently always an incestuous obsession and can still be platonic. Another form of this trope is the imoto, which is the standard Japanese word for younger sister. But the imoto as a trope is basically a sibling, cousin, step siblings, or adopted sibling who has a crush on their quote-unquote brother character, even if that crush is unrequited. The typical setup is that the sister character has romantic feelings for her older male sibling, but sometimes they'll say, oh, they're step siblings, so technically they're not blood related, so it's okay. Although I will say now that if you have to say, well, technically, in a sentence defending the topic of incest, I'll say that your argument might not come off as too strong. Quote, the imoto generally acts as a form of wish fulfillment for its largely male target audience. Broadly speaking, the genres in which standard imoto characters typically appear already involve some manner of fan service, be it the traditional sort involving physically sexualized characters, or a power fantasy in which the main character is transported to a world where he is immediately far more powerful than his peers. Having a protective, doting, or endearingly spirited and cute younger quote-unquote sister who just so happens to be romantically attracted to the protagonist, the audience stand-in, is simply a more extreme case of this kind of wish fulfillment. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're doing it for the boys, I guess. And we've seen these tropes happen in a lot of popular anime, even nowadays. And just a disclaimer, before I talk about some of these anime, I'm not saying that there is incest canonically in these shows. I'm just saying there are elements of these tropes within popular anime today, just so everyone understands. I'm not claiming everyone loves each other in these series, okay? Spy X Family was one of 2022's breakout anime series full of wholesome comedy, iconic Anya meme faces that I still use to this day, and a young man whose every thought and action says, tell me you have incestuous feelings for your older sister, without saying you have incestuous feelings for your older sister. I love Spy X Family, and I think every character is pretty likable in their own way. Even Yuri. But did we really need to have him dip his toes in the zones of romantic feelings for his sister? The show keeps it ambiguous enough to play it off as a comedic joke, but even still, like, why do we need this? Oshinoko is like an elephant in the room that is so fucking massive that it destroyed the entire house that it was in. I don't really want to talk about it too much, but like, come on. Like, this whole show has this underlying plot line of, OMG, this guy and girl were reincarnated as twins, but they weren't related in the past life. So it's okay if the plotline turns incestual at some point, right? Because technically they were unrelated before they were reincarnated. But also, not to mention the fact that even before they were reincarnated, the dude was literally like an adult doctor and the girl was like 14. But the opening is a fucking banger, so the incest is accepted in the mainstream. Also, I didn't read the ending, but I know it fucking sucked, so like whatever. Mashle, which is easily one of my favorite new animes and one I definitely do recommend everyone to watch, has Lance, who has a legitimate reason and platonic family love for his sister, but for some reason chooses to identify as a siscon, literally giving merch with his sister's face on it to Mashle's adoptive father because everyone needs to fall in love with his angel of a sister, according to him. Obviously, this character is more making fun of the trope rather than actually being the trope, but the fact of the matter is, the trope is popular enough to spawn a parody like this in the first place. Bungo Stray Dogs literally has a sister pouncing onto his brother like a feral werewolf every single time the two are in the same vicinity of each other. Black Clover has one of the more prominent supporting characters, Gosh, have literal nosebleeds every time he looks at a picture of his younger sister. This is another case of someone who has a legitimate reason and platonic love for his sibling, but again chooses to identify as a siscon because why? Psyche K, I think, is another like satirical case where they're making fun of the trope, but there's an older brother having an obsession with his younger sibling to the point of stalking her and smelling stuff in her room, question mark? And don't even get me started on Sword Art Online. Okay, dear God, it's too late now because I've started, so let me talk about SAO. Look, truthfully, I've only seen the first 2 arcs of Sword Art Online. The first arc, which was actually good, and then the second arc, the infamous fairy dance arc. If you've never seen Sword Art Online, let's just say that this is described by one Reddit user as this awesome friend who has one really annoying trait. You just have to accept the bad with the good. There was so much that was just elf shit about the second arc of SAO that I won't talk about in too much depth because that's not the point of this video. But this arc just left a very awful taste in my mouth. However, you know, if you're an SAO enjoyer, I respect it. I'm sure it does get much better after the second arc from what I've heard, but it's just not for me. But one of the things I felt as though really brought down the fairy dance arc was the entire storyline with Suguha, who is Kirito's sister, cousin, whatever the fucking hell technicalities it is. Suguha is introduced to us as Kirito's sister, but it turns out that she's actually his cousin the whole time. She apparently had a fucking crush on her older brother slash cousin, so she starts playing this game called Alfheim Online, where her avatar is this blonde elf girl who looks nothing like her. So she meets Kirito in Alfheim Online, but believes that he's a complete stranger. The two get closer to each other, and Suguha feels hopeful because, oh my gosh, now she can use this opportunity to get rid of the romantic feelings that she's had for her older brother this entire time. But one day, she's forced to learn that this dashing young online stranger she was playing this massively multiplayer OO RPG game in her MetaQuest 69 or whatever with was actually her older brother slash cousin, who she was literally trying to move on from in the first place. Like, holy mother of God. Why? Anyways, I just don't see how this plot line is something that we really just needed. Technically, they're cousins, so it's a little more acceptable than the fact that they were siblings. I mean, Edgar Allan Poe married his cousin and no one gave him shit for it. But they were raised as actual siblings, though. And like, she had a crush on Kirito even before she found out they were cousins, though. Like, this was just a part of their two stories since the beginning, though. Like, Kirito literally sees her as a family member because she is one, though. Am I the only one going insane? And I'm sure there are many other infamous examples of these themes in anime that I didn't talk about in this video. And if I did miss something, make sure to leave it in the comments below. Or don't. Honestly, this whole video feels like I just opened Pandora's box. Is there something in the air of Japan that's causing this uptick in wanting to romantically intertwine with your blood siblings? Is this the same shit that's in the air of Alabama? Speaking of Alabama, have you heard the rumors? There's apparently a force field that's set up around the state of Alabama, and when you step inside of it, you just suddenly want to begin fucking your blood-related family members on the spot. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. I know I keep clowning on Alabama. I'm sure it's a lovely place, okay? I really don't know. I just think it's a funny joke to me, okay? I'm sorry. I actually did some forbidden Googling to see why this sort of incestual relationship is so prevalent in anime and manga, and I found some interesting stuff. One Reddit user says, Japan's low birth rate means a lot of people with no siblings who connect with the perfect idealized siblings in incest stories. Incest is a theme in shoujo girls fiction because it's a very emotion-focused and intense relationship, and us ladies ladies love them feels. I can neither confirm or deny, I have no idea. Japan's just generally more open with sexuality and fiction. Incest featured in the mythology of how Japan was created. More on this later. In Japanese culture, older siblings statistically have more responsibility over their siblings than in other cultures and have more intimate relationships with each other. Another Reddit user says, the best I can think of is that many Japanese don't have any siblings. At least in the city, they usually won't have more than 1 or 2 children. Since anime usually is a collection of imagination, sibling dynamic in anime is simply a what if for those who never experienced any of it, or a way to escape from their poor relationship with their sibling. Family matters can happen after all. Not to mention, traditionally, Japanese people think family is a very important part of their society. Even if that family member is rubbish, they will still help him no matter what. Now, me growing up in a Japanese family in America, I can't really personally attest to whether or not just because culturally family is very important to you means you end up wanting to hook up with them. I'm not really sure if there's a correlation between the two. Maybe it really is just supposed to fulfill a certain niche for a certain audience, and maybe I'm just looking into it way more than any single human being should ever dare look into a topic like this. I do want to mention something interesting though. In the earlier Reddit comment, they mentioned that incest is featured in the mythology of how Japan was created. So after doing some digging, I found a story that somehow makes incest the least of its worries. It's about the story of Izanagi and Izanami. They were the 8th pair of brother and sister gods to appear after heaven and earth separated out of chaos. The brother and sister decided that they wished to bonk bonk, and their first attempt at a sexual union resulted in a deformed child known as Hiruko. And guess what these two siblings slash parents did to their poor child who couldn't live a normal life because of his deformities? They set him adrift on a fucking boat. What? Why? Because he was deformed? Like, Jesus Christ. Apparently this mistake was blamed on Izanami, who, quote, as a woman, should never have spoken first, completely ignoring the fact that these two were actually biological siblings, and maybe that might have contributed just a little bit to the issue at hand. But nah, it's not because of that. No, it's because the woman spoke, right? Later on, Izanami gave birth to the fire god, Kagutsuchi, and this baby literally spontaneously combusted his mom while popping out of her. And after being brutally murdered by her baby, Izanami was sent to Yomi, the land of darkness. This poor lady was sent to hell for being combusted by her child. What is happening? Anyway, Izanagi follows her there, but apparently Izanami now couldn't leave anymore because she had some food that was from the place. When Izanagi lit a fire and saw her face, he saw that she was actually rotting and covered with maggots. Izanagi fled as he was being chased down by a host of women, as well as Izanami herself. After reaching the entrance to Yomi, Izanagi put a stone across it and blocked it off. He then bathed in the sea to purify himself and literally gave birth to a bunch of deities and gods as he washed them out of his pores or whatever. What the you know, sometimes I sit here and wonder, what am I doing with my life? I guess the theme of incest has been sort of there since the beginning of Japan. I guess that doesn't necessarily correlate with how weird anime siblings are, but I just thought this entire thing was kind of interesting and way too cursed not to share with you guys. I also found this article that discusses the history of Japan and incest in way too much detail. Quote, the truth is, historically, Japan has not had any real problem with incest. In fact, clans would traditionally encourage relationships amongst cousins or second cousins to perpetuate family dynasties. If a father was widowed, he would often marry his daughter. Practices like this continued well into the 20th century, especially in very traditional rural families. Indeed, incestuous relationships were so common in olden days between siblings, cousins, aunts/nephews, uncles/nieces, and alike that genetics experts say that this has introduced all sorts of problems into Japan's DNA. And after reading this, I now have a lot of questions about my ancestors. But honestly, I'm not even sure if I want to know any of the fucking answers. By the post-war era, most people's attitudes towards incest had turned to complete disapproval, likely due to the introduction of genetic science and probably a moral influence from the West. It's now common wisdom that Japan's bloodline is a mess due to all the inbreeding. I didn't know that, but I guess it is common wisdom. But incest is not illegal there, and as piles and piles of Japanese media can attest to, its forbidden nature has turned it into a fetish. In more recent times, there have been reports that counselors in Japan have seen a lot of mothers who have been having sexual relationships with their teenage sons. The reports were that the mothers were lonely housewives whose husbands were essentially always at work, and rationalized the relationships by saying they were keeping them clear-headed and focused on their studies rather than girls. long story short, this was an article that I wish I had never read. But now that I was unfortunately subjugated to this information, I'll also be subjugating all of you to this awful information. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, because I'm not. So what's the point of this video anyways, you might ask? Did I set off on a journey to try and understand and explain the reason and meaning behind Japan's apparent fixation on incest? To be honest, I don't even know anymore. I genuinely think I might have lost the plot now. This entire video was a f***ing mistake. I guess the long story short is the world may never know why things are the way they are. We simply just accept it and move on, I guess. Thanks for watching. I need to go sleep or something.